There are many things that players do to honor the Pokemon they love. Some players shiny hunt them to get an extra rare one to cherish, while others might make art depicting their favorite in new ways. But my far and away favorite thing to do for Pokemon that I find special is to Ribbon Master them. Now, Ribbon Mastering doesn't mean taking specifically a Shadow Pokemon and doing every single possible ribbon and mark in existence from generations 3 through 9. The Pokemon only needs to get every ribbon and mark that was available to that specific individual. This video will not, however, be a recap of that entire journey for each of my Ribbon Masters. Despite appearances and despite having even more of those types of videos in the hopper, I am a bit afraid of making so many Ribbon Master journey videos that the format gets repetitive or annoying. Rather, this video will serve as an insight into the various reasons that I Ribbon Master my Pokemon, why I find each of my Ribbon Masters special, or otherwise just share some fun facts I have about each of them. So as we approach the end of the Scarlet and Violet era and ahead of Pokemon Legends ZA, here's a little bit about every one of my over 100 and still counting Ribbon Masters that I've journeyed with through the years. Toedscool is my most well-known Ribbon Master, and I actually try to sneak cameos of him in every video I make. I can't guarantee that I've succeeded in doing this, but if you have a free afternoon and want a fun game, you can go to all of my videos after I've caught Toast and try to see where he's lurking. Charmander you may recognize from the Pokédoku video. They were one of my first shiny Sizemark Pokemon in Pokemon Go, caught during one of the December Community Day recap events. My first Sizemark shiny in Go was actually a Patrat, but currently that Pokemon can't actually access any ribbons. Also, as a little bonus, here's me failing a shiny Doduo in Synchro mode. I thought I was close enough to have it not despawn when I went back to my trainer, and since it was just running straight into the walls, I doubt there was a way for me to get it to change course and go closer. Now Pikachu here is my answer to a question people often ask, which is what I'll do if there's a game with no Scizor in it that still has ribbons. I'd very much like to see them cut Pikachu from a game, maybe from future Unova remakes? Of my 3 Pikachu Ribbon Masters, one of them is from the Coliseum Japanese bonus disc, which is more famous for being able to give out Celebi. One of them is the Mightiest Mark Pikachu from the original run of that event, which had the ability to be a Jumbo Mark at a 1 in 16 rate. And the third is the World Champion Cap Pikachu that was distributed during Sword and Shield. And this Pikachu actually has the Alola Champion ribbon as its event ribbon, which is a pretty rare sight to see that they're using a ribbon you can get elsewhere. The only one I can think of other than this is the Pokemon Rocks America and Pokemon Festa Matang from 2005 that had the national ribbon. And that one was tied to the demo where you purified it as a Shadow Pokemon. My shiny Clefairy Ribbon Master comes from a distribution that was held in Sword and Shield with the Battle Champion ribbon. I wasn't actually planning to Ribbon Master this Clefairy when I received it, but then I used it to help expose Terrapagos' cheating at the very end of the DLC, since the ability Friend Guard is very useful for keeping Carbine Sinistcha alive in order to show off Terrapagos' 9,999 damage Zen Headbutt. Since they were so helpful in achieving that, I decided to Ribbon Master them as thanks. Gumbo the shiny Alolan Vulpix here is from a previous video where I Ribbon Mastered Pokemon that I got as cards from NAIC. A weird thing about Vulpix Ribbon Masters is that they're kind of in opposition to Growlithe. Both of them are available as Shadow Pokemon from XD Gale of Darkness, but having a Cantonian Growlithe means it can't go to Legends Arceus, but Alolan Vulpix can. Kind of a weird split considering Growlithe was given a regional form in those games while Vulpix was just coasting off the previous regional form, and that no other Alolan forms even made it into Legends Arceus. Now Machamp is actually kind of a spoiler for an upcoming Ribbons video that I'm working on. I have this sort of rule where I try to get a plush of every species of Pokemon that I've Ribbon Mastered, and that goes both ways. If I get a plush of something, then I go and make a Ribbon Master, and if I make a Ribbon Master, then I go and get a plush. The thing about Machamp here is it's one of the plush mascots that I got at the World Championships in Anaheim, and so I still need to hunt Fennekin and Jigglypuff to go with those plushes and turn them into a video. So you're kind of getting a sneak peek here of something I have planned down the line. Ribbon Mastering Tentacool served sort of a dual purpose related to that plush rule. When I made my Generation 2 decorations video, I got a Tentacool sitting cutie for a single visual gag about how we didn't know how to get the Tentacool doll at all. And since that meant I now had a plush of it, I decided to do a Ribbon Master from Let's Go Eevee, not only to go along with the plush, but to complete my origin marks that I had done Ribbon Masters of. And you wanna know how much box storage space you have in this game? Never mind. Everybody, I baited everybody into Googling box storage space and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee so I could sneak in and get the shiny. There we go. To this day, Toedscool is only one of 2 Pokemon that I've hunted in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee as a shiny. Crouton the Scyther here got a little shout out in my Pokedoku video, and they're part of a little mini family tree I have from my Ribbon Master Scizor. Obviously I expanded that massively in my last video where I caught Scizor from every generation. And Crouton briefly appeared in that video where I talked about my previous experience hunting in Generation 2. Shimmer the Magikarp is one of my only 2 Safari Zone shinies up to this point, or at least she's the second of the ones that I've found and caught. She was also part of the Pokedoku video where I ribboned her in parallel with her clone sister, Tiamat, who got all of the illegal ribbons while she remained a Magikarp and got all of the ones regularly available. Porygon here is a funny little case. I shiny hunted this Porygon as part of one of Shiny Catherine's hide-and-seek videos where we had to hunt the shinies that we would disguise ourselves as. When I set out to ribbon Porygon, I decided I would keep them at level 5, because Dr. Footstep in BDSP will give Porygon a footprint ribbon just by having maximum friendship, as it's one of the voiceless species that didn't have their dialogue branch updated when copy-pasted from Diamond and Pearl. This plan was accidentally subverted when we were actually playing hide-and-seek and a shiny Squirtle popped up while I was the Seeker. I didn't remove Porygon from my party when I went to catch it, and so I decided that I might as well let them level up to 100, since I'm not going to reset over a shiny Squirtle and be like, sorry guys, I'm trying to keep this Porygon at level 5, so you guys understand, I'll just fail a shiny real quick. Now Bolt the Zapdos here is actually my first Ribbon Master, even predating Toast. Back when I was making my Living Dex in Generation 3, the only game that I owned that had Teddiursa in it was XD Gale of Darkness. Coincidentally, when I was nearing the end of the game, Johnstone's video about ribbons dropped, and I decided to pick up a Shadow Pokemon Ribbon Master to call my own. I decided on Greevil's Zapdos since I had my Master Ball and it was close to the end of the game, and I wouldn't even go back for his other Shadow Legendaries until about 5 years later. But shout out to Johnstone for inspiring me to do all this ribbon shenaniganery. My shiny Ribbon Master Zapdos here is named the Bird to complete the other half of the infamous Magic the Gathering phrase, Bolt the Bird. This one is a Jumbo Shiny Zapdos that I caught from Pokemon Go. Despite only being marked as XL in the Pokemon Go summary screen, there is a slight threshold between XL and XXL where they still count as a 255 size Pokemon, so when sent over to the mainline series, they ended up getting the Jumbo mark. I transferred them through Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee so I could use an Ultra Ball for the better color match, since you're allowed to use any other Pokeball you want in the Go Park. Now Mew is by far one of the most popular Pokemon to Ribbon Master. Not only can glitches allow you to get it even to this day in Generation 3, but there have been a multitude of recent events that made Mew more accessible than ever. I myself have ribboned no fewer than 5 Mews, all with varying origins and stories behind them. The first Mew I ribbon mastered is the 2005 movie Mew that appeared on Pokemon Emerald when I bought it from Japan. Apparently this is a pretty widespread Mew event, as multiple cartridges that I've bought from there have had this Mew on them. This one in particular I ribboned in August of 2022 because the upcoming Series 13 for Sword and Shield ranked would allow Pokemon from the Mythical category for the first time ever, allowing them to get the Master Rank ribbon for a limited 2 months. As I'm recording this, the second month of Regulation J has just started in Paldea, which presents another opportunity for Mew to get the Master Rank ribbon for a limited time. Speaking of which, the other Mews that I've ribboned were able to get the Master Rank ribbon from Regulation J, but were all ribboned after Series 13 ended. George the Mew is an English Emerald Mew that I RNG'd in anticipation of the Mewtwo Mightiest Mark event, which allows Mew to get the Mightiest Mark if it defeats Mewtwo in a 7-star raid. I still actually have a profile with the Mewtwo event saved, so I can still get Mightiest Mark Mew whenever I want, but this one was ribboned before I had such plans. I actually ribboned George in a single sitting, which took about 17 hours from start to finish. Mewlicia here is actually Haley's Mew from My Pokemon Ranch. In Generation 4, if you have the same trainer ID as a Pokemon, you can rename them no matter what, making them the laxest game with the nickname restrictions to date. By RNGing our trainer ID as 01000, we're able to nickname Haley's Mew, who I named after Militia, who is one of the pioneers of e-reader modding. Since Haley asks for any egg, I traded Militia for one of her Manaphy eggs and then traded that to Haley to make it a fair trade. Mom 2 is another Emerald Faraway Mew that I hunted during Ranch Week, which is a shiny hunting event that I host where shinies that are found in Generation 3 and 4 are sent to a Pokemon Ranch for a whole week-long stream. Compared to George, Mom 2 was hunted in a more traditional way, and I have reason to believe that the cartridge that I found her on was actually one of the original old C-map recipients from back in the day, as I couldn't find any indication there were hacked items or Pokemon elsewhere on the cartridge. The name Mom 2 comes from a joke that Magnemite made during that Ranch Week since I had found shiny Mewtwo earlier during the event, like this was somehow Mewtwo's mom coming to check in on it. My final Mew, Lapis Lazuli, comes from Pokemon Go's Masterwork Research. and they were used during the Pokédoku video to solve the square of learns Dragon Rage and is a mythical Pokémon. This Mew is actually the reason I saved the Mightiest Mark Mewtwo event, as I knew I would want to get the Mightiest Mark after I had finished this research, but finishing that Mightiest Mark Mew research is no easy feat, and it easily took me over 6 months. Kinder the Togepi is one of my Shadow Pokemon Ribbon Masters and got an entire video dedicated to hunting her down. For those who don't know, I originally tried to shiny hunt the Togetic at the end of Pokemon Coliseum to be my Ribbon Master champion, and it took over 10,000 resets before I decided to quit and hunt Scizor instead, which ended up being a very wise decision. Kinder the Togepi comes from the same card room that Toast does, and there's a bit of weirdness with selecting the PID where the game keeps re-rolling until it gets a female sassy Togepi, which is a 1 in 200 rate. Togetic here is one of my Alpha Ribbon Masters, which I found using the permutation method in the Pokédoku video. While I've made an entire video on the permutation method, Togetic was actually my first experience with it on passive Pokemon. While I was hunting this, I actually found a shiny Alpha Togetic, but then I caught it in the wrong ball. I wanted to catch it in a wing ball, but I was too worried about one of them roaring and scaring it off that I accidentally threw a jet ball. Since this was a passive permutation, it was a little unclear on what I had actually done to get this shiny to spawn, but after a few more attempts I got it to spawn again and managed to secure it in the matching wing ball. Force the Unknown here is actually tied back to the Generation 2 decorations video like Toedscool was. See, the Unknown doll is also one of the other rumored dolls that existed in Stadium 2 but wasn't actually obtainable. And back in Generation 2 and a little bit into Generation 3, Unknown F wasn't actually the default Unknown. That spot was shared between Unknown G and Unknown F, some theorize because it's the initials of Game Freak. While you can't see what form it is in Gold, Silver, and Crystal, in the room viewer in Stadium 2 you can see the Unknown doll is a G. So in honor of that, I hunted down a shiny Unknown G in a single phase in Fire Red and Leaf Green, which you can see in my bingo card from last year. Unknown from Generation 3 actually has a really weird distinction where it can get the gold version of the Battle Memory Ribbon, but not the Contest Memory Ribbon. Normally every Pokemon from Generation 3 can get the Gold Contest Memory Ribbon by participating in all 40 Pokemon contests in Generation 3 and 4. However, Unknown and Ditto are in a weird spot where they're banned from Sinnoh's Super Contests. And so Unknown can only get the 20 Generation 3 contest ribbons, and Unknown from Generation 4 can't get the contest memory ribbon at all. Big Bug the Heracross was my first shiny Alpha, and their name is actually a reference to Dokapon Kingdom's Big Bug, which is a curse item that slowly chews through your inventory. Hunting this Alpha in particular was actually a suggestion from Toxicognath Hugs, who is my resident bug enthusiast in chat, and also often suggests a lot of other bug-related shiny hunts. Alpha Rowlet was one of the alphas that I hunted down for my Pokédoku video, and also probably my luckiest encounter entirely in Legends Arceus overall. My plan was to do permutations, but finding an outbreak with an Alpha Rowlet second wave is actually extremely difficult, and I didn't even have the opportunity to, as when I went to find another Rowlet outbreak, there just happened to be a shiny Alpha in the first 4. Now, Pumpernickel the Cleavor and Yay Dude the Weirdeer are actually a brilliant example of how Pokemon can vary on how many ribbons they can get based on their origin. Pumpernickel the Cleavor was obtained from a massive mass outbreak from the second wave when I was looking for shiny Alpha Scyther. But Yay Dude was a Stantler who I then evolved into Weirdeer. A Pokeball. I think it may be Heavy Ball for the black color. Ah! You're not supposed to be here. I don't know why he ran over here. Oh, you're not stunned yet. How about now? Cool. Yeah, one of you needs to get into a Pokeball and stop bothering me. Let's go. Because of this, Pumpernickel only needs the ribbons from Hisui and Paldea, but Yay Dude had the opportunity to go to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and so they had to stay there as a Stantler and get all the ribbons before returning to Hisui to evolve. Alpha Bibarel was part of my 2024 Shiny Bingo card, and it's because Bibarel was actually my first full odds shiny ever. Right before the release of Pokemon Platinum, I was failing to wrap my head around the Generation 4 radar, and I accidentally stumbled into a full odds shiny Bibarel on the first patch of the chain. I don't have this Bibarel anymore, however I decided to hunt shiny Alpha Bibarel in their honor. Because they can't go to Paldea, you can't actually see their Jumbo Mark, Hisui Ribbon, or Alpha Mark, but I swear they're there. Loaf is the final 3 of the Alphas that I had on my 2024 bingo card, and also the one that took the longest. Funnily enough, between him and Toast, I actually have shiny Mini Mark Scizor and shiny Jumbo Mark Scizor. Also, for some reason, Alpha Scizor is like as tall as the buildings in Jubilife Village, which is a little strange. Alpha Chingling is a Pokemon that I set my sights on because of Miss L's Shiny Alpha Week challenge. Now, Shiny Alpha Chingling is easiest to get through permutations from Massive Mass Outbreaks. Unfortunately, this means that it won't be able to get the Footprint Ribbon, as the way that Massive Mass Outbreaks choose their level is that if the Pokemon evolves via level up to a specific level, they will be around level 40 when they spawn. But if the Pokemon evolves through any other method, they will be above level 70. Because you have to level up 30 times in order to actually get the Footprint Ribbon, that means that most Alpha Pokemon from Massive Mass Outbreaks won't be able to get it. But since this Pokemon didn't have the opportunity to get the Footprint Ribbon, it's not required for it to be a Ribbon Master. Delibird is a Pokemon I wasn't planning to Ribbon Master, but then I bought a Delibird sitting cutie as a Christmas decoration. That Christmas, I decided to hunt a Delibird in Kitakami as they were doing event outbreaks and tried to get a Misty Mark. And on Christmas Day, instead of a Misty Mark, what do I get but a Rare Mark Shiny Delibird? So acknowledging the Christmas miracle, I decided to go with that one as my Ribbon Master and left the Misty Mark for another one. Phanpy I decided to Ribbon Master because it's my mom's favorite Pokemon. This particular Phanpy is actually the fastest I've ever hunted a shiny Pokemon by number of encounters. While I was using the 1 in 64 shiny egg rate trick, Phanpy was still hatched in a ludicrously fast 4 eggs, which is not a record I expect to beat anytime soon. Porygon 2 is a Ribbon Master that I did simply because it's one of my favorites. My top 5 is kind of nebulous, but it looks something like Scizor, Porygon 2, Porygon Z, Kleavor, Scyther. This one in particular I just happened to send over to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and it rolled 0 speed, which is very useful for Trick Room but also not particularly rare since you get a random speed IV every time you catch a Pokemon in the Go Park, so you can actually soft reset for a 0 speed IV, and if you have a 0 attack IV in Pokemon Go, that's also locked in at 1 attack. Lugia here is another one of Greevil's Shadow Pokemon, probably his most famous Shadow Pokemon actually, as this is the Shadow Lugia that appears on the very box art of Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. This is the only restricted Pokemon able to get the National Ribbon, and unfortunately I did wipe its Shadow exclusive moves in Sword and Shield in order to get the Master Rank Ribbon, which I could have gotten later in Paldea. But at the time, restricted legendary Pokemon weren't able to go into Paldea ranked and I didn't feel like waiting. Feather Dance actually did become a TM in Generation 9, but they didn't give it back to Lugia, which is probably the biggest travesty of all about those games. Funnily enough, Lugia's access to Psycho Boost as a Shadow move makes it the only Pokemon that can have it on its moveset in Sword and Shield. But since Deoxys isn't in the game, they didn't actually bother to program it in, so it's unusable. Ho-Oh here is from Colosseum, specifically the one you get for conquering Mount Battle after purifying all 48 Shadow Pokemon. Hence the trainer ID being 100 for the 100 battles and 48 for the 48 Shadow Pokemon. This is from the save file where I actually got Toast, as I decided to purify all of the Shadow Pokemon in order to get Celebi, and since I was already done with that, I decided to go up Mount Battle and get Ho-Oh. This is another one that I decided to ribbon in one sitting as part of my affiliate anniversary over on Twitch. Celebi here is another Pokemon that I have 2 Ribbon Masters of. This first one is the Agate Celebi that I just mentioned from the Colosseum bonus disc. After purifying all 48 Shadow Pokemon, it gains the ability to send 48 Celebi to Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, as well as one to the Colosseum save file that actually did all the hard work. Interestingly, the Celebi and Pikachu from the bonus disc, as well as the Ho-Oh from Mount Battle, all have the met location of Hoenn instead of Distant Land, and so all three of them are actually eligible to get the Time Travel Award from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. The other Celebi here is the Shiny Celebi from the Distracted by Something Shiny special research they put out in Pokemon Go to celebrate the Zarude movie. I ribboned these two honestly because they were able to get the Master Rank ribbon in Series 13, and I wouldn't be able to have an opportunity later. Even with Paldea's Regulation J going on, Celebi isn't actually able to go to those games despite the time travel theme. So to this day, the only way to get Master Rank ribbon Celebi is to have done it back in 2022. Jumble and Minion here are both part of my plushie rule, as when I was making my real Pokemon Ribbons video, I decided to try and track down all of the Pokemon plushes that already came with ribbons. Of the two runs of Bonpresto contest ribbon plushes, Plusle and Minun made the most sense as a matched pair to show off both the Ultra and Master Rank ribbons that they came with. First, I shiny hunted Mini Mark Minun on only 57 phases in Chargestone Cavern, but when I went to 64 phases with Plusle without finding the Jumbo Shiny, I decided to give up on it until they gave us the ability to hunt Plusle outside of Chargestone Cavern, as honestly the hunting conditions there are rough. Luckily, they eventually gave us an outbreak event of Pikachu-like Pokemon that put Plusle all over the terrarium instead of just in that one cave. And so after about 130 phases, I was able to finally find a single Jumbo Mark Plusle. Vespiquen here is the first partner ribbon Pokemon that I got shortly after the DLC launched, which I got by inviting Katie to the League Club Room 3 times. Her Combee trait is always female, and you can bring Combee and Vespiquen to every Pokemon game on the Switch so far, and so it was a clear front runner when I decided I wanted a partner Ribbon Master. Deep Blue is my Porygon Z Ribbon Master who makes a brief appearance in my Pokedoku and Togepi shiny hunting videos. As previously stated, the Porygon line is one of my favorites, and so I decided to hunt one from the Leaf Green cartridge I had as a kid. The one thing that bothers me is that I wish I could swap their nickname with my Porygon 2 Ribbon Master, as Deep Blue is a much better name for a Porygon 2 and Blue Screen is a way better name for a Porygon Z, but unfortunately there's not really much I can do about it. Now since it's the subject of my most viewed video on this channel, I couldn't get away with not doing a Palkia Ribbon Master at some point. I decided to do the Sport Ball Palkia from that video as my Ribbon Master, as I figured the Sport Ball Palkia would be the rarest going forward. And then they decided to do a Terra Raid event with Palkia and then introduce the Sport Ball in the second part of the DLC. So, whoops. I have been coincidentally chipping away at having a Ribbon Master in every Pokeball, although I still do need an Origin Ball one at some point, so that'll have to either be a Dialga or another Palkia. Void the Darkrai is another shiny that I found during Ranch Week and another one that's benefited from the Regulation J rules allowing them to get the Master Rank ribbon. This one is actually one that I hunted alongside my original member card save file. I actually dual hunted Darkrai and Shaman alongside my original save file where I got those event items, and in both cases the Japanese game that I set up to have the event items sparkled before my original save file. So those two are still sitting there on New Moon Island and Flower Paradise waiting to be caught. I never actually caught them as a kid because I remember seeing sources say that if a Pokemon wasn't shiny on your first encounter with them, they'll never be shiny, which is probably something that was referring to roamers, but as a kid I was like, I can never talk to these Pokemon or they'll never be shiny. And I still haven't caught them to this day. Speaking of Shaman, this is chronologically my oldest Ribbon Master. Not by the moment that they were made Ribbon Masters, but by the moment they came into existence when I got them back at a Toys R Us event in 2009. Grace, the shiny Shaman here, was hunted for my Pokedoku video, although I did try to hunt them for Shiny Catherine's hide and seek video to hide in the coastal biome, and they just refused to shine until much later. Arceus is my other Toys R Us original event Ribbon Master and also very close in age to Shaman. Arceus can actually only get the Footprint Ribbon if it was from Generation 4, as every Arceus that's ever been available in the Pokemon series has been met at above level 70, meaning that they can never satisfy the 30 level up requirement that most games have for the Footprint Ribbon lately. My shiny Arceus I hunted for an event hosted by Sammy Aaron, where we were supposed to be hunting Grass-type Pokemon, but I successfully argued that Arceus could be a Grass-type Pokemon if it felt like it with a Meadow Plate. Nice. Nice, 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 nice. Alright then. Time to put our money where our mouth is. any false swipe mons. I don't want to lower its HP because it could struggle. Arceus has very low power points at this level. Doesn't matter anyway. Ever since the start of Regulation J, they've been a close companion spamming Terra normal extreme speeds alongside Chen Pao. Victini here is the first Ribbon Master on this list that can only go to Galar. Like many other mythicals that I've Ribbon Mastered, Victini was because of the Series 13 event that allowed them into Ranked in Galar. This one is the World's 2022 one that comes with a souvenir ribbon. This shiny Amoonguss is the one they distributed that is meant to be Baek Jong-yoon's Amoonguss from the 2019 World Championships. This one is interesting because instead of having the Battle Champion ribbon, it has the Event ribbon, which is normally reserved for in-person Pokemon events. My Virizion Ribbon Master is another one where I happened to get a Size Mark 1 in Pokemon Go. However, this one is interesting because it's caught in a regular Pokeball rather than a Premier Ball. This is because to make up for a raid mess-up during the Generation 5 celebrations, they gave everybody a bunch of research tasks that awarded Virizion, Terrakion, Cobalion, and a whole bunch of Genesect. Because this is a research encounter, you could use any kind of Pokeball, and so this Mini Mark Shiny Virizion just happens to be a really unique encounter because of that. Zekrom here is another event Pokemon that I just happened to find on a cartridge that I bought for my collection, in this case Pokemon Black. Back in Generation 5, they did an event where Pokemon White players would get Reshiram and Pokemon Black players would get Zekrom, each with a wishing ribbon. Despite having a gift ribbon, however, this Zekrom gets the exact same number of ribbons that any other Zekrom from Generation 5 and 6 can get. Due to being met at level 100, this Zekrom can't get the footprint ribbon that others of its species can. Meloetta is another Pokemon from an old distribution that I attended, this one being the 2016 Year of Mythicals Meloetta. Unlike Zekrom, who got the same number of ribbons as others of its species, however, Meloetta from Generation 6 actually loses a ribbon compared to Meloetta from Generation 5, which is pretty rare as Generation 5 doesn't even have any ribbons. This is because Meloetta from Generation 5 come with a gift ribbon, and they are met at level 50, meaning they can get the footprint ribbon starting in Generation 6. All the Meloetta from Generation 6, however, are met at level 100, so even though they have a gift ribbon, they miss out on have one fewer ribbon than Meloetta from Gen 5. Just one of those weird idiosyncrasies about where you meet your Pokemon. Kokio the Vivillon here is actually pretty interesting because this is one of my Ribbon Masters that was actually given to me by a fan. I did all the ribbons on them, but they were given to me by Shazel at the Pokemon 2024 World Championships in Honolulu. They were giving out Ocean Pattern Vivillon hatched in Generation 7 named after various flora from Hawaii, and they gave this one to me alongside fan art of Toast, which I greatly appreciated. Flabebe is the first of a group of Pokemon I've been making a habit of getting every year, birthday ribbon Pokemon. Now normally to get one of these you have to go to a Pokemon Center in Japan and present some sort of proof that your birth month is this month, and then you'll be given a serial code for the birthday ribbon Pokemon. However, some people instead of redeeming their codes sell them on to others, and so that's where I've been getting mine. So far I have the birthday ribbon Flabebe from 2023, birthday ribbon Palmy from 2024, and birthday ribbon Tandemaus from 2025. And yes, I checked, the Tandemaus is family of 4, unfortunately. Funnily enough, the title for the birthday ribbon is the Best Buddy, so if they decide to transfer over the Best Buddy ribbon from Go, they're gonna have to come up with another title. Mochi the Esper here is actually a bit of an oddball. See, because of my plush rule, one of my friends got me an Esper plush way back when Generation 6 was current, and I actually have kept this plush all the way until today. So because of my rule, I decided to Masada method for a shiny Heal Ball Esper, which I think is one of the better Pokeball fits across the whole series. The reason they got me an Esper plush in the first place was because my profile on most social media used to be a picture of Esper's face all close up. Kuri-chan the Gudra here was the first Generation 6 shiny I raid art on stream and is one of my older Ribbon Masters having the mini mark from the Legends Arceus size bug. One thing to note about Ribbon Mastering Gumi is that you do have to keep it unevolved all the way until Legends Arceus so that it can go into Hisui as a Gumi, take the photo with the Hisui ribbon, and then you can move it to another game to evolve it into Kalosian Sliggoo. Or if you'd like to evolve it into Hisui and Gudra, you have to make sure to get the Galar ribbons as a Gumi, and then you can evolve it in Hisui. Now since we can all see it coming that Zygarde is going to play some sort of pivotal role in ZA, I would be a fool not to Ribbon Master one from Kalos. Nithog here is actually a pretty interesting example of the Generation 8 nicknaming system. If your Pokemon wasn't met in a fateful encounter and it doesn't have a nickname yet, when it reaches Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet, you can actually give it a nickname one time. What's notable about this is that this gives you access to characters that you don't have access to on the 3DS keyboard, which is how I managed to get this nickname, which uses some Nordic characters that the 3DS doesn't have. Incineroar here is the Wolfie's Incineroar distribution that was given out during NAIC, And of course I ribboned them during my NAIC Ribbon Masters video. I've still been using them to this day in my ranked teams, so thanks for that, Wolf. Coming up on another group of Pokemon I've been collecting annually, Tatsugiri, Steenie, and Toedscool here were all ribbon Pokemon that I got from World Championship distributions. While I didn't attend the 2023 event in Yokohama, a box of Timbits was kind enough to send me a code for Tatsugiri. Steenie and Toedscool, however, I did receive codes for by attending, and I gave away a couple of them as Galar Fight Night prizes when the events were running. All three of these have the event ribbon for being done in person, and I actually ribboned Toedscool during the duration of Worlds, even going so far as sitting down at one of the tables in the venue and doing a phone hotspot so I could do ranked battles. Xurkitree, Guzzlord, Celesteela, and Zeraora were all done for one reason alone, and that's the Pokedoku video, since they were all squares on my puzzle where there was only one answer, namely the Ultra Beast squares with different types and learning Dragon Rage, as well as the Electric type Mythical square. Unfortunately, Zeraora I didn't think to do the Master Rank ribbon on until after Series 13 was well over. Necrozma here is another Pokemon Go shiny, and one that I had on my previous 2024 bingo card. The main thing I wanted out of my shiny Necrozma was for it to be caught in a Beast Ball, which was normally only possible in Sword and Shield until Pokemon Go added the Beast Ball for their wormhole events. A fun little peek behind the curtain on the 2024 bingo card video, the Necrozma in the video is not actually the one that I caught from a raid. The one that's shown on video is actually one that I got in the makeup research for the event. Not only did this give Necrozma with a guaranteed wormhole background, but also one of mine happened to be shiny, which is what I screen recorded to put in the video. My Magearna Ribbon Masters were both done because of Series 13 for Sword and Shield giving them access to the Master Rank ribbon, with the Weathered Magearna being one that I redeemed from Generation 7 as well as the Home Gift Magearna with the original paint. Funnily enough, my Generation 7 Magearna has a Met date of November 2nd, which is actually after Series 13 already ended. But because that's tied to the 3DS date, it's perfectly fine for it to have the Master Rank ribbon. And now, especially because of Regulation J, it's completely possible. Meltan and Melmetal are perhaps the two easiest Ribbon Masters you can do right now. Melmetal here is another shiny that I ribboned specifically because of Series 13 giving them access to the Master Rank ribbon. But this Meltan here is a level 1 mini-mark Meltan. You can't actually see the size variation or get the mini-mark in Galar, but I assure you it's there. Meltan has a very unique distinction of being only able to get 4 ribbons before it's a Ribbon Master, those being the Effort, Best Friends, Galar Champion, and Tower Master ribbon. All very easy if you want to claim the title of Ribbon Master on a Pokemon in a single afternoon. Uriel the Indeedee is the first shiny that I hunted in 2024, and are also on my 2024 bingo card. I initially set my sights on Misty Mark Basculegion, but after a bit of initial testing, that didn't actually prove to be possible, because the entire area above the Basculin Pond doesn't spawn misty weather. So instead I decided to hunt for Indeedee. The name Uriel is a reference to Magic the Gathering with Uriel the Mist Stalker, a fitting tribute considering the mark's title of the Mist Drifter. Dracovish was the first shiny that I hunted in Galar, one that's particularly easy if you have Pokemon Shield, as the Drake fossil and the Fish fossil are both very easy to find in Pokemon Shield. The shiny hunt itself is extremely easy too, as you basically just mash A at Keralis until you run out of fossils and then check all the ones you revived. The non-shiny Dracovish is Marco Hamantha Caludura Silva's Dracovish, which was given out with the Battle Champion ribbon around when I was actually in Master Ball tier for Scizor. This is a common trend with my Generation 8 and 9 Ribbon Masters, where I'll be in Master Rank for some reason or another, and I'll just be like, I've got this event Pokemon, might as well get every ribbon on it. Duraludon here I decided to Ribbon Master after the Smeargle clone glitch was discovered with the Indigo Disc DLC. See, when you use the Smeargle clone glitch, you can actually get partner Ribbon Pokemon with your own OT, and so I decided to Ribbon Master Drayton's Duraludon, and then clone it so I would have Tony's Archaludon. Zacian here is a prime example of another Pokemon where I just happened to be in Master Ball tier and decided to ribbon them. Zacian was one of my restricteds, however, to get to Master Ball tier with Toast. Funnily enough, their Lure Ball here is one that I spent hours resetting to try and get them in, and I distinctly remember my dad watching me and being very confused by what I was doing. And nowadays, because of Pokemon Go, he actually knows who Zacian is, even if it doesn't adequately explain what I was doing. Eternatus here was the last distribution we got in Galar, and so I decided to Ribbon Master it as we were coming up on the end of the era for those games. Funnily enough, because of the scale lock on legendary models in this game, Eternatus is only the biggest Pokemon on paper. If you have a Jumbo Mark Dondozo, they're actually longer than Eternatus in these games. Now Zarude, unsurprisingly, is another mythical that I just happened to have during Series 13 that I decided to Ribbon Master while I could get the Master Rank ribbon. This one was actually caught from Pokemon Go at an international market here in Ohio called Jungle Gyms, so I'm honestly surprised that I haven't used my one free nickname on it to name it Jungle Gym. Regieleki is another shiny that I hunted for one of Sammy Aaron's shiny hunting events, this one themed around spiky Pokemon. Oh, okay. Once again, I had incredible luck with this one, and the name Light Socket came from a chatter who traded naming rights in exchange for one of their Master Balls that I didn't even end up needing to use to catch it. Now Calyrex here is the epitome of, I just happened to Ribbon Master this Pokemon out of sheer coincidence. See, Calyrex I used for the Master Rank ribbon, and the Tower Master ribbon, and the Galar Champion ribbon, and I EV trained them so they could get the Effort ribbon. They basically just needed focused effort on the Best Friends ribbon, so here they are. They're still my Calyrex for everything else that I need to get done in Galar, so they often stay in those games just fused to their Spectrier. Now Shaman and Arceus are some of the oldest Pokemon on this list, but third oldest here is actually Bred the Cleavor. See, even before I reached Bolt at the end of XD Gale of Darkness, I had to pass through the Shadow Scyther trainer and catch their Pokemon. And so this Cleavor is actually older than my first Ribbon Master. In order to evolve them into Cleavor, I had to keep them as Scyther until I had gotten all of the ribbons from Galar and BDSP, but then I was able to send them over to Legends Arceus to evolve with a Black Augurite. Honestly, cross-generational evolutions are some of my favorite Ribbon Masters to do. Another quote-unquote victim of the plush rule, Lyco Sprigatito I ribbon because I had a Sprigatito plush from when I made all of the IRL ribbons. Sprigatito, Fuecoco, and Quaxley got a line of plushes that were pre-order bonuses in Japan that came with a Best Friends ribbon acrylic charm. So when I was going through all the official merch of ribbons, I of course picked one up for myself. Lechonk was my first shiny of Generation 9, just found randomly wandering around on day 1. While gathering Master Rank ribbons on Pokemon like Lechonk, I do sometimes wonder if my opponents still think about the time that I had one on my team and they still lost. Even though I didn't even bring Lechonk to the match, losing to a team with Lechonk on it has to do some psychic damage somewhere. Palmy the Stern is another Ribbon Master that I did for my NAIC card video, which was given to me by Nora in the future at the Retro Shiny Challenge event. While the personality mark that I ended up with doesn't particularly match the card, the idea of a very angry Palmy is just kind of funny. Chubbs the Dachshund is another one of my Paldea Ribbon Masters who is named after Bear Taffy's dog. Another in the line of I happen to have this event Pokemon and I happen to have the ability to get the Master Rank ribbon on it is Giseocles Garganacl, who was distributed around 2023 when I was in Generation 9's Master Ball tier for the first time. While Roldarl the Armarouge here is like a lot of my other Paldea Ribbon Masters just being one that I happened to get the Master Rank ribbon on while using them on a team, their nickname is actually a weird mishmash of references to both Mega Man and Roald Dahl, and also a question from the video game of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire where they spell Roald Dahl's name a bunch of funny different ways.
Which of these is the correct spelling of a writer's name? Roald Dahl, Rodal, Roald Darl, Roald Dahl.
I got
Roald Dahl in the game at the first time.
Yeah,
Roald
go with D,
Dahl.
please.
It's kind of a mess, but I love it. The final Ribbon Master for my NAIC Ribbon Masters video, and also the subject of multiple videos where I hunt close to 2,000 of them, Shiny Wattrel the Teary-Eyed is unsurprisingly among one of my most cherished Ribbon Masters. And honestly, I'm still not even done talking about Wattrel on this channel. There's gonna be at least one more video, and that should be the end of it, I swear. Birthday Boy the Palafin was the first Destiny Mark shiny that I hunted after my first birthday from Scarlet and Violet's release. Originally, I'd hoped to hunt a double Mark Destiny Mark Pokemon, but back then the Mark Charm wasn't available, so the chances of getting a double Mark Pokemon were even lower. Speaking of Destiny Mark Pokemon, we have Birthday Mew the Farigiraf. Now the name is basically just a reference to an old Mew event they had at Toys R Us, which the vague reason they decided they were hosting a Mew giveaway was that it was Jeffrey the Giraffe's birthday. Since they were caught as a Farigiraf, they don't need to get the other ribbons that Girafarig can get in BDSP. Catherine the Dunsparce is obviously named after Shiny Catherine, and they were caught using the Hardy Synchronized method with the Poké Radar. For those who don't know, in Pokemon Platinum, if you use the ability Synchronize to give a hardy nature to wild Pokemon, that means their PID is being forced to end in 00, 25, 50, or 75 in decimal, and the data field that determines what form Dunsparce evolves into is copied over from their PID for Pokemon from generations 5 and below. And so if you use Hardy Synchronize, 1 out of 8 Dunsparce that spawn will have a 3-segment Dunsparce evolution. Using the Pokéradar, you can then chain a bunch of shiny Dunsparce this way, and in fact, after exactly 8 Dunsparce, 1 of mine was eligible to evolve into a 3-segment. Queen Gambit is a Ribbon Master I did both because I wanted a Generation 5 shiny Ribbon Master, but I also wanted one for the cross-generational evolution of Bisharp, King Gambit. I also really wanted a Luxury Ball to match King Gambit's color palette, and so I decided to hunt them in Route 9 in White 2 using Magnet Pull. King Gambit also gets an extremely good Ribbon title combination, but only if it has a Generation 5 or 6 origin, with King Gambit the Gorgeous Royal. Now Fluttermane is also a Ribbon Master of Opportunity, because I used them in multiple teams in Regulation C and D. Mr. Popper and Buzzer Beater are almost identical in that they're both shinies that I just happened to use on ranked teams. Mr. Popper actually was on a fun gimmick team that I used in Regulation C where you would use Flip Turn into Armor Rouge, proc their weakness policy, weak armor, and then immediately switch into Indeedee, landing a +2 expanding force with +1 speed. And that kind of epitomizes the kind of ranked team I like to use, where there's an incredibly obvious lead, but if you don't counter it, you just kind of lose. Mr. Popper is named after the book Mr. Popper's Penguins, which they read to us in 1st grade, and Buzzer Beater was another Destiny Mark shiny that I found at 11:59 on my birthday this year. Catch These the Iron Hands is another Pokemon where I happened to do ranked with them, and they were actually the first Ribbon Master that I had in Paldea. On top of this, they were also the first shiny marked Pokemon I found in Paldea. Now for obvious reasons, I'm going to bundle Wo-Chien, Chien-Pao, Chi-Yu, and Ting-Lu into one group, as these are all basically the same Ribbon Master but given out at different points. Honestly, I found the 1 million victories format of these events really fun, even though it was pretty obvious they were not going to just go, oh, you didn't meet the target, you don't get the 4th of this entire quartet, and it'll be shiny locked forever. Ogerpon and Terapagos are both Pokemon that I ribboned because they were the mascots of their respective DLC. Also, both of these come from my second playthrough of the DLC, where I caught Ogerpon in a Safari Ball and I caught Terapagos in a Beast Ball. Beast Ball Terapagos is one of my favorite Pokeball matches in the entire series, as the Rainbow Hexagon effect is absolutely perfect for the theming of Terapagos. I know a lot of people, including myself, decided to use a Friend Ball on Ogerpon, but for my second playthrough I decided to go to Blueberry Academy and get the Dex Completion Reward Safari Ball before going back and catching Ogerpon, making it a little more unique. When Dipplin was first revealed, I decided to shiny hunt Applin alongside Chotakana. She used the Outbreak method while I used the Tall Pokemon in Tag Tree Thicket method with an Encounter Power 3 Dragon Sandwich. I do kind of wish I caught this one in a level ball because it matches perfectly with Hydrapple and Dipplin's theming, but at the time we had no idea what the shiny was going to look like. Dipplin and Hydrapple also need to make sure to get the Galar ribbons while they're still in Applin. Raging Bolt is my favorite of the Paradox Pokemon introduced in the DLC, and has done quite a bit of work on every ranked team I've used in the formats where it's legal. Last up, we have my most recent Ribbon Masters, Koraidon and Miraidon. Now this distribution was really messily handled. One of them was given to me by a chat member, and the other I traded for a shiny Ribbon Master Halucha that I ribboned on stream. So I choose to think of these as a symbol of the community coming together rather than one of something else that the scalpers have tainted. This Koraidon was actually extremely lucky, getting the partner mark before the item finder mark, which is something that's only ever happened to me one other time with shiny Necrozma, and even managed to get the Gourmand mark before the Best Friends ribbon from the handful of sandwiches that we used to raise its friendship. And with that, even though I have even more Ribbon Masters slowly in the works, those are all my completed ones as of this point. I truly believe the Ribbon Challenge is one of the best ways to fall in love with the uncountable ways to enjoy the Pokemon series all over again. I hope this video has been a decent showcase of that, and hopefully it inspires some of you all to embark on your own ribbon journeys as well. And even if you don't, thanks for watching.